The Story of Seasons series has been a cornerstone of my gaming career. I credit this series of getting me into many different types of video games, from Like a Dragon to Trails, but that's a tangent for another day. The game that got me into the series overall, funnily enough, was Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life on the GameCube back in 2004. Now, nearly 20 years later, here I am reviewing its remake, Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life, and let me tell you, the magic the original game gave me is alive and well in this remake. The gameplay of A Wonderful Life can safely be called your modern Story of Seasons fare. The core gameplay is running your farm on a day-to-day basis and befriending the many different people around the Forgotten Valley. Doing so is much more streamlined and much more enjoyable in this version than in the original. I have to say, the farming in A Wonderful Life probably is some of my favorites in the entire series so far. You start out with two fields, a non-fertile one and a fertile one. Later in the game you have the option to purchase a very fertile field, which is also an important upgrade to get. But the core farming itself is very satisfying. In this remake, you're now able to spread up to the traditional 3x3 crop grids, and you can now upgrade your tools when Van comes to town. That's right! In the amount of time it would have taken you in the original to water a handful of crops, you can water the entire field. Even at the base watering can level, it is much more satisfying to water your crops and makes the agriculture side of running the farm all the more fun and less of a chore like it was in the original. What keeps the farming party going is the return of hybrid crops. Just like in the original game, our multi-headed plant friend, now named Vinny or Viney, can combine and mutate your crops into interesting creations. However, the real fun begins once you start crossbreeding your second generation of crops. From there you get some really interesting and sometimes funny crops to harvest, and they sell for a decent amount to boot too, so it makes the whole ordeal worth it. Just be sure to buy yourself the seed maker so you're able to keep up with your output of crops to make. Oh, and don't think you can just cheese your way through by using a guide from the older game. There's over 20 new crops you can make in this one. Now, the ranching side of this game is pretty much unchanged from the original release. You'll be able to raise cows, sheep, chickens, ducks, and a goat. Compared to the normal Story of Seasons games, cows actually provide milk twice a day, and there's a much larger variety of cows to pick from, all giving different types of milk that are better at producing different things. For example, some cows give milk that makes a higher quality of cheese, while another gives better butter. Or if you are a real baller, the star cow is just good at it all. Just like the farming, ranching has been sped up by a large margin and feels a lot smoother versus the original game. It should be noted that with your animals, your cows will no longer go dry like in the original release. However, it is still best to have a bull to breed with them, as after about a year, the output of milk a cow produces will decline, and the quality you get after a calf is born is much higher than it normally would be. So the game doesn't fully remove the incentive to have your cows reproduce. This also applies to your goat too, so it will no longer take up valuable space in your barn if it were to go dry, since it can't go dry in this game, which means you do not have to commit unspeakable crimes anymore to remedy this issue. Once you get yourself into a groove of farming, ranching, fishing, and hitting up the ancient ruins for some extra income, you will find yourself having a very successful farm, which comes in handy when a lot of things you will want in the game turn out to be very expensive. I also found it enjoyable having a very large harvest and creating new items to give to the town folks in the valley to build my rapport with them. On that note, all of the villagers returned from the original game, with their own designs that paid nice homage to the original, and adding some flair for those who really needed it. All the bachelors. But on this topic, a large portion of the start of this game will be you trying to woo your potential bachelor or bachelorette of choice. You have the classic three of Molly, Cecilia, and Nami, with the addition of Lumina returning from the special edition of the game on PS2. Thankfully, Marvelous has rectified the largest issue with her, making her of age and more in line with her Harvest Moon DS counterpart, as opposed to, well, the 14-year-old from the PS2 version. On the Bachelor side, you have Mustafa, Martin, and Rock. Joining him for the first time will be our artist friend, Gordy, a nice stoic individual ready to punch out his next masterpiece. I do have to praise the bachelor designs in this game, as their original forms were never meant to be considered for marriage candidates. That said, I really need to commend the basic changes to the four girls though. While subtle changes in their looks, they all look amazing, and they all have such wonderful heart events that I was struggling to decide on who I wanted to marry almost until the end of chapter 1. Ah, right. Should probably discuss that unlike most Story of Seasons titles, this game has a very strict and linear story structure, but don't let that scare you. Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life is broken into 7 chapters across the player's life. Chapter 1 is the most important one, as it's the chapter in which you get married. You have to get married for the game to progress, but thankfully the game has plenty of fail-safes in case you lose track of time. At the end of the chapter, you'll get a reverse proposal option from the people who have the most affinity towards you. And unlike in the original, you can choose who you want it to be, so you're not locked into, say, marrying Rock. Once you decide who to marry, their reverse proposal event plays out and your wonderful life continues. However, if you decide to forego even this, then sadly it's game over. Time marches on, with each chapter taking place a few years after the previous one. As time progresses, people around you age, your lives move on and continue to grow. You and your spouse have a child, and part of the game's story will be raising said child and trying to be the best parent you can be. How you raise your child will also affect your career plans by the end of the game, and unlike your children in other Story of Seasons games, they actually do have a life of their own, and they move into their teenage years. This is something I wish more Story of Seasons games did, having the ability to naturally raise your child into their adult years like you can in this game. Through those years, you will make many memories of your kid with several different events to boot, so always be on the lookout for them. Each chapter is 1 year in length, unlike in the original game. In the original, Chapter 2 was 2 years, Chapter 3 was 3 years, 4, 2, and so on. I think this is very much appreciated and needed, as if all the quality of life changes, the pace of the game has quickened a bit, where having chapters drag on for multiple years could really drag out your enjoyment. But don't worry, I think the system gives you plenty of time to experience everything. As of writing this, I am nearing 100 hours of playtime and will probably be more when it's done, and am only nearing my way through Chapter 5. This game can be played at any pace in which is best for you. If you take your time, relax, and just do everything the game has to offer to progress your farm, you'll find yourself racking up the hours and be shocked that you're only on Chapter 3. Unlike the original game, this one has 7 chapters instead of 6. This is because once you reach Chapter 7, the game will go from the story mode into an infinite free mode that allows you to keep playing indefinitely, similar to the Afterlife mode on the PS2 version. So don't feel pressured to unlock and see everything within the confines of the main story. The game is best enjoyed at a relaxed pace, as if you decide to speed your way through, you will soon find yourself not a lot of things to do. Also, unlike a lot of other Story of Seasons games, the events in this game can get pretty unhinged. There is more than one way to get a game over in this game after all, and there are a lot of crazy events that go around this strange valley that just makes me scratch my head sometimes. For every wholesome event you have with your spouse or child, there can be an equally interesting one that will just make you scratch your head. However, it should be noted that the dialogue choices in this game matter much more than any other Bokujo game, as if you pick the wrong choice, events tend to end very prematurely, and your reputation with the people involved will take a massive hit. And sometimes the obvious answer to these things can end up being the wrong answer, cutting the events short. It is a shame that the autosave in this game is absolutely horrible, as you may have to reset an entire day or so to have a go at an event you wanted to see and messed up. But hey, when you are able to see them, they are more than worth it. It should be noted that I'm playing the PC version of this game, and my PC specs will be in the description below if any of you are wondering what I am running. Through my time playing, the game ran flawlessly at 1440p and 60 frames per second, with only rare frame drops that can be explained due to me multitasking. While on Switch, you can expect a consistent frame rate there too. While the game will run at 60 frames per second in most situations, you can expect to find some slowdown when you have many things running on screen at once, such as all your animals out to pasture while tending to a large field or anything intensive like that. But this game really just has an amazing look to it once you see it in motion. It's a look that is easy on the eyes and invokes a lot of warm feelings of the original while feeling more filled with life. As the seasons go on, so do the environments around you. As spring ends and you move into summer, the days begin to get longer, the forest area is lusher, and from summer to fall, the leaves begin to change colors and begin to fall. And the scenery goes into a nice transition that is complete by the first day of the new season. I really do love this a lot, and the visual touches like this go a long way in selling the valley to me. Right, so I need to say this. Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life is the best game in the entire Bokujo Monogatari series. Full stop. If you enjoyed the original game, you are in for a wonderful trip down memory lane. If this is your first time playing this one, you are in for one of the most relaxed and coziest farming adventures of your life. This right here, this is the ideal remake. It is one of those remakes that takes everything good about the original game, makes it better, and then adds its own flair to it. There is no reason whatsoever why you should ever want to play the original game on GameCube or PS2. When playing the original again, I never realized how many glaring issues it had, and moving into this one, it clicked with me that this is the game my brain thought I was playing as a child. Everything about this game is built together so perfectly that it was just pure, unadulterated bliss going through it all with a fresh coat of paint. When playing this game, it felt more like a welcome home than anything else. There is so much I wanted to cover in this review to really get my feelings for this game across to you all. Marvelous is officially 2 for 2 on remakes being of amazing quality that matches the original or surpasses them. But if I were to put every tiny detail into this, my editor would probably show up to my house armed and dangerous. But I will end on this note. This game is honestly worth every penny you would spend on it if you're looking for your next relaxing game fix, or if you were a fan of the original and want to try and recapture that magic that it gave you. I will tell you now, you won't be disappointed. But that does it for today's review. I do plan to have some more Wonderful Life coverage leading up to the launch of this game, including streams on Twitch, linked down in the description below. If you're new to my channel, finding out for the first time through this review, hey, be sure to subscribe for future reviews, commentary, streams, and more. And as always everyone, thanks for watching, and happy farming.